Hi, I'm Kate Cooper, Professor of History at Royal Holloway. I'm a historian of the ancient world, and my special focus is the rise of Christianity and the history of the family. Something students are often really interested in digging into is that moment at the end of the Roman Republic where everyone's exhausted and Augustus, the General Octavian, who becomes the Emperor Augustus, comes in with the offer of peace. And the idea of the peace of Augustus, on the one hand, it's an incredible cultural monument in the history of the world, but when you really get close into that period and try to understand what it meant to the citizens of the Roman Empire, and indeed to the non-citizen population of the Roman Empire, to finally have someone come along who was able to offer peace after decades of civil war. This is a society where the crops have been repeatedly destroyed by conquering generals coming back and forth, where towns and villages have been burned. Everyone's absolutely exhausted, and the society has become incredibly unstable because of the constant sense of not knowing who's in charge, not knowing whether another crisis is about to emerge. Literally nobody can make plans. So in that sense, by the time Augustus starts to consolidate his power towards the end of the civil wars, basically the whole society is desperate for peace. They're desperate to be able to plant their crops and be sure that they're going to be able to harvest them in the autumn. Augustus's ideal of the peace of Rome, or the peace of Augustus, it's an idea. If you look at, for example, the Areopagus, the altar of peace that he builds in Rome, there's all of this marvelous imagery of plants growing, mothers and children peaceably sitting surrounded by beautiful flowers that are blooming. And the idea here really is that it's going to be possible now to have a society that's fertile, that's productive, where children can grow up safely to adulthood, where there's going to be enough to eat. So it's one of those cases where trying to understand imperial propaganda, it's both important to understand politically why it was so valuable to Augustus to be able to be seen as the bringer of peace, and yet there's this other side that's very human of trying to understand a society that desperately needs to have someone bring an era of peace after a period of devastation. One of the questions students often ask is, was there ever a chance that the Roman Republic would be able to continue as a stable society, or was the eventual crisis of the Republic inevitable? And there are different arguments, but one of the things I find students come to again and again is the sense that forces are unleashed in the early period of Roman expansion, a sense of seeking after glory that initially is understood to be for the sake of the greater good of the Roman project. But after a certain point, there starts to really be a sense that this is a pitched battle between rivals. It's really a pitched battle between rival warlords who are trying, in a sense, they're hiding behind the ideal of Roman greatness, but in a sense, they're really in it for themselves. And I think any argument about how that catastrophe could have been avoided, it would have to be an argument almost about human psychology. How can you get people who have come up in a system of putting themselves forward as dangerous and powerful, how can you get those same people to put the common good ahead of their own glory?